Hello everybody, and welcome to my presentation to provide or not provide psychedelic-assisted therapy. That is the question. PTSD, major depression and other mood disorders, suicidality, and substance disorders can cause impairments in individuals' lives. They may be chronic, treatment-resistant, or even fatal. There are significant limitations in the accessibility and effectiveness of conventional mental health intervention. This is especially true in the case of individuals with complex or chronic trauma presentations, like military veterans or adults that had adverse childhood experiences. Psychedelic-assisted therapy is emerging as a cutting-edge therapy that is currently going through clinical trials. Evidence for its effectiveness is very promising. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration granted breakthrough therapy designation to psychedelics like psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, and MDMA. Since the psychedelic landscape is likely about to change rapidly in multiple countries, including the United States, clinicians should be asking themselves, is this a service I want to provide for clients? And if so, how can I go about ethically incorporating psychedelics into my practice? So step 1 of the 5-step model: identify or scrutinize the problem. There is evidence to suggest that the use of psychedelics is beneficial in the treatment of multiple mental health and spiritual related issues. But the problem is implementing psychedelics into professional practice comes with its own set of ethical and legal considerations. Some questions that a practitioner can ask themselves for each of these principles would be: Principle A, beneficence and non-maleficence. Does psychedelic therapy promote the greatest good? Does psychedelic-assisted therapy reduce potential harm? For fidelity and responsibility, are practitioners aware of their professional code of conduct specific to psychedelic therapy? Principle C, integrity. Do practitioners promote accuracy, honesty, and truthfulness when discussing with the client the potential risks and benefits of participating in psychedelic-assisted therapy? Principle D, justice. Do all groups have equitable access to psychedelic-assisted therapy? So, are practitioners operating within their realm of competence? Finally, Principle E, respect for people's right and dignity. Are practitioners keeping their clients' information confidential? This is especially important for psychedelic therapy, as it's not considered legal federally yet and could have some ramifications for clients. We need to take special care as practitioners to keep this type of information confidential. Step 2, develop alternatives or hypotheses. So there are multiple courses of action a clinician may take when deciding if they should implement psychedelic-assisted therapy within their practice. There are 2 main courses of actions that could have multiple subpaths, like if you offer it, then you do it ethically or unethically, or maybe you wait to offer it. The first path is kind of self-explanatory. A practitioner decides not to provide psychedelic-assisted therapy. Okay, so say we take path 1, right? And you're a practitioner, you don't want to offer the therapy. What are the pros of that? Well, you don't have to spend the time or money learning the new training, because you would have to go through a certificate program, most likely, like they offer in Oregon. Oregon was the first state to legalize it, followed by Colorado, and it looks like California may be the 3rd state. All right, cons though. So you're doing a potential disservice to your clients, especially clients that have trauma-related disorders, treatment-resistant mood disorders, and substance use disorders, because the evidence so far shows that psychedelic therapy is actually a pretty good treatment for these things. And that's why the FDA has approved it for clinical trials. Okay, so say you do want to provide psychedelic-assisted therapy. You're convinced that it's beneficial and you're ready to jump in. All right, so what are the pros? The pros for providing this therapy is that it's a promising new treatment option for trauma-related disorders, treatment-resistant mood disorders, and substance use disorders, as well as other things. There's lasting effects after a single dose, so there's evidence of that. Clients are very enthusiastic about this therapy. In Oregon, it's so popular, they're backed up for years. and they're charging thousands of dollars. It's insane. Okay, and then another pro of this therapy is the neurological benefits. Like, the studies are showing that it has the potential for neuroregenesis. So that's really interesting. Trials are still ongoing, so that might be a con because, one, there's a lack of long-term research, so we don't know the long-term effects. There's also the potential for a client to have a bad trip while they're in therapy, but this could be turned around because during a bad trip, usually what a client will experience would be something like severe anxiety or panic even, and these are all things that psychologists treat. We should be able to handle a bad trip if it happens. Which brings us to another con. It requires specialized training, and you might have to get a certificate. California doesn't have set rules yet. They're still arguing about it in Congress. So that's why we were supposed to have regulations this year, but that didn't happen. And then the final con, like I mentioned before, would be that it's illegal under federal law. Okay, so what is the best option to take? Well, I think the best option to take would be to ethically provide psychedelic-assisted therapy. The second best option would be to wait until it's more widely accepted before incorporating it into practice. The next option would be to not provide psychedelic-assisted therapy, which I think is doing a disservice to clients. And then the worst option would be to unethically provide psychedelic-assisted therapy. So if you're getting into it for the wrong reasons, just don't do it. Okay, step 5. So look back or evaluate the results. Since psychedelic-assisted therapy is a newer form of treatment still undergoing clinical trials, it will need to be carefully monitored over the next several years and likely refined and perfected over time. Like any specialized treatment in psychology, it will require practitioners to stay up to date with continual training. In reflection, I felt good using this 5-step model. It's not perfect, but I don't think that any model is perfect. They just give us guidelines for how to act in certain situations. And in this case, we evaluated the pros and cons for psychedelic therapy and came to the conclusion that it's probably beneficial to provide.